our issues, our voices, our views. This is Politics in Black.
What's happening, family? We are back and we are live on another broadcast of Politics in Black, brought to you by the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants, aka NAASDLA. As you know, my name is Chad Brown. I'm only one half of the hosting team. Sitting next to me, fresh from North Cackalack, Friday Jones. Get in touch with the ancestors. Get in touch with the ancestors down there.
Oh my gosh. What's up, our Politics in Black fam? I'm very excited to be here. No one's ever more excited than Chad. He brings the heat and the love every week, the fire.
That's because I love my people.
I know you do. And so, North Carolina genealogy work, like, folks, you got to not just do it, from a long distance. Sometimes you got to go back and you got to see those names in the tombstones.
That's right. The names. Let's talk about the names, right? Because we talking to the family today, right? And that's what we're doing. We uplifting names today. We uplifting the family. And, Friday, we've been doing this for a little over a year now. We've had the opportunity to talk to some giants in the civil rights movement. So we had Cortland Cox, we had Dave Dennis, we had Reverend Dr. Amos Brown on. And it's been a consistent theme that I've heard from those civil rights leaders that, people make movements, number one, and that movements are best bottom up. Not top down.
That is how we do it here.
That's how we
it's
do
very
it.
much bottom up, and we have some fantastic people today that have operated from that same format of bottom up, and we spread wide, and then we go a little bit further up.
That's right.
And so today, are we hopping into this thing?
We're gonna hop in because we got some reparationists on the line.
We do.
And we got a discussion and a conversation that we want to have. So I say let's get into it. So I'll start by bringing in our first guest on this reparations roundtable. Well, we're talking to the grassroots, the people doing the work.
The people doing the work.
The people doing the work. First person I want to bring in, you've known him, you know him, he's been here before, he's a friend to this show, he's out here in California working hard. Chris Lodgson up in Sacramento, California. Chris is a community organizer with American Redress Coalition of California, ARCC, ARC. ARC is a grassroots Northern California-based group of community members working for reparations and equity. ARC is also a part of the statewide Coalition for a Just and Equitable California. You've heard that before. That's CJ. So come on in here, Chris.
Yes. Welcome, Brother Chris.
What up? What up? What's up?
Oh, you got the jacket on today. It's serious business.
Hey, I feel special. I appreciate you. It's making official business.
Yeah.
We also have with us today for today's Reparation Roundtable, Logic Supreme, based out of Chicago, Illinois. Logic is the co-founder of the he is a co-founder and the national spokesperson for United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen, which is a nonprofit civil rights organization. In addition, he also co-hosts as a political commentator on the YouTube platform Be the Power, which is the media arm for Be the Power, Inc., a political education organization lawfully incorporated in the state of Georgia. Logic is a husband, father, entrepreneur, community organizer, political scientist, and American Freedmen Reparations.
And just a solid brother all the way around. So get on in here, Logic.
Yeah, give it up for Logic.
Brother Logic. Appreciate you being here today. And so
thank you.
I'm going to bring in a third person on this round table, and she really needs no introduction. If you have been anywhere around the reparations movement and you've heard her speak, you felt the same kind of fire coming off of her that I felt. So I want to bring in Angela Nirvana out in Long Beach. She's in California, and Angela is the creator and host of the Reparationist Perspective, TRP, on YouTube, where she weaponizes her voice, and she does weaponize it. Bombs. She weaponizes her voice in the reparationist movement to grow critical mass support for reparations in the trillions over multiple generations. She is one of a handful of unapologetic voices in the new Black media that shares her perspective of current events through an ADOCS, American Descendants of Chattel Slavery, lens. Get on in here, Angela Nirvana. How you doing, sister?
Blessed and unstoppable.
Hey now.
Amen.
All right,
Amen.
Angela.
Amen. I already got chills. Let's go, y'all. Let's go.
All right, and coming out of Chicago, we have Brother Marlon Watson. Marlon Watson is the executive director of a new social justice org, We Want to Live, and president of reparations organization, the FDOC.
It looks like we might not have Marlon yet.
Of Chicago. Marlon recently got legislation passed in the state of Illinois making structural violence a health crisis in the state, and staged a walk to D.C. in an effort to make violence a health crisis across the country. So welcome, Brother Marlon. No stranger to the work.
No stranger to the work. Wearing out the leather on them boots. And next, I'm going to bring in Tansy Flakes from the DMV. Oh, no Tansy yet?
Not yet.
Okay, we haven't been able to get in touch with Tansy. Tansy, if you're watching, call us. We want you here. But we'll go ahead and bring in Antonia Edwards from Connecticut. And Antonia is the founder of Connecticut reparations group Solidarity, along with Jonathan Bryant and James Kiet. We're extremely dedicated, or at Solidarity, they're extremely dedicated to their strong commitment to enlighten, empower, and encourage all voices be heard from the Black American descendants of U.S. chattel slavery freedmen communities. Their primary focus is securing the reparations that were guaranteed under the Freedmen's Act of 1865. Get on in here, Antonia. How you doing, sister?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
How are you?
Hi.
Thank you.
It is so good to see everybody.
Yes, it's nothing but love today.
Yeah.
That's right.
Longevity.
That's right.
Thank you.
No, thank you
Thank
for
you
being
for
here,
inviting
sister.
me.
So what we wanted to do today, and thank you everyone for being here, is we wanted to, in the spirit of unity, in the spirit of solidarity, we wanted to bring all of the reparationists, and it's not all, so don't get mad at me. We couldn't get everybody on this one show, but we wanted to bring in folks that we know are out there putting in work, grassroots level, working towards this mission of federal reparations and collective uplift for our communities. And we want to have a conversation today. So kicking that off, I think I want to start with Angela, because this is the first time that we've all been in the same space, Angela, me, you, and Friday since Fox Soul. You know, you lit that, you doused that stage with gasoline and threw a match on it.
3121 folks scared of her. They like, we can't, they run from Angela because she brings such data. It's almost like you can't argue against
the combination of data and passion. It can't be beaten, can't be stopped, right?
Thank you.
But Angela,
I am properly impressed to be here with such an esteemed panel. Absolutely. I guess I should have put my glasses on when y'all sent me the flyer. I couldn't really see all them logos. And so who knew? This is such a pleasant surprise. Thank you so much for having me as a guest.
Well, thank you for being here, sister.
Platform.
Thank you
grateful.
for being here.
Thank you.
And we want to kick off, Angela, with you, and we want to talk about the role of new Black media. You know, you have been, what I see you out there doing is amplifying the message. You're using your platform to spread the message of reparations, and you're using your voice every time AB 3121, that task force meets. You're on that line, and you're letting them know about specificity. You're letting them know about cash payments and what reparations needs to look like, or what the programs need to look like here in California for equity and collective uplift. So talk to us a little bit, Angela, because, you know, we did Fox Soul together, but then you took it to the next level. What do you see as your role in Black media? And then what's some of the Black media that you are also watching and tuned into and plugged into in this reparationist space?
Thank you so much for the question. Well, new Black media, I mean, my God, we were the ones to actually make reparations a household name.
Facts.
Now, we started kind of small, right? Not really small, but we were mighty. We coalesced around political education and was inspired, you know, to start this movement from all over the country. And it was social media that brought us together.
That's right.
I didn't even see you guys, and not everybody did I see, at the inaugural conference from the former ADOS movement that we are all co-founders of. We were inspired by that education, and we went to work. So I don't know what you heard, but this is it. Well, a few of us. Anyway, I'm not going to be messy. I promise God I will be on my best behavior.
I love it.
But let's keep it a buck at the same time, because y'all know I don't know how to do it no other way. So out of what we founded collectively with Marlon and Chris, we're really at the helm of that. Yep. You know, cutting and pasting and putting us up with amazing people I met Friday, the very first meeting. I was trying to start my little thing, and she had her thing, and we came together and made it a thing. And then I met, the rest from that. But Chris was the one to put me in touch. These two brothers here, I don't care what you heard.
Yeah.
They help.
We know.
Okay, so anyway, let me fast forward because I don't want to be messy, and I want to share the mic. Y'all know I was born to talk. Anyway, so I went to the inaugural conference, and when I met the likes of these beautiful, amazing, brilliant minds behind the movement, the creators of the movement, I decided, at the behest of Tamara Johnson Shealy, because I co-hosted her show a couple times, she's like, your mouth's so big, you need your own show. And I thought, that's wonderful. Let me do that. I was so nervous, but even at that conference, I had my laptop out, and she helped me to figure out how to go live because I'm technologically unsavvy. And, the rest is history. It was born 2 years ago this month. So the new Black media and what we do between Twitter, Facebook, and ScrewTube, these kinds of things that we do is the reason why reparations is a household name and why it's even still relevant, because the Black immigrants in the mainstream media space, they like to try to refer to us as bots and all these kinds of things. When we bleed freedmen, ADOC, B1, FBA, that's what we bleed, okay?
Yes,
there's no
amen,
Russia
sister.
involved. I don't even know Russian.
Not at all.
So
amen, sister.
that's the vitality. That's the importance of shows like the Reparations Perspective. I've been inspired by Politics in Black, Be the Power. There was a show out of Chicago with Cynthia and Arthur. That name just leaves me right now. But
Cam,
it's because
Yep.
we show up.
That's right.
That this is even still on the radar.
So
folks like to sit up here and tell me, they're not doing anything. The devil is a lie.
Amen, sister.
Very active.
Amen. That's
And
that fire. That's that fire I love.
Yeah, and you mentioned Be the Power. We have Logic on with us, and Logic has certainly, I think, the conscious brothers is what I would say in terms of the teaching style, from that conscious Black community, if you will. And so Logic, with Be the Power, it definitely says in the bio you want it to be educational, but talk to us about just how the platform is expanding into areas that it may not have even been in before, because I guarantee you some of the brothers that I grew up with, I know reparations is not on their radar, but I know that your show, it speaks particularly to like the brothers, to the men, to the manhood. And so talk to us a little bit about Be the Power.
Thank you. Yes, we do have a focus on, men, being strong men, being leaders, but ultimately our goal is like a family focus, a complete unit. And Be the Power first of all, Be the Power, for those who don't know, is a political concept. Me and my partners, my freedmen correspondents, came up with in 2014 when we were doing some civil rights justice work in Illinois and in Georgia, and in New Jersey and New York as well. And so we saw something that was going on. We all were bred on the concept of fight the power. We seen all these struggle. And so we said, well, what we're missing is actually power. Like, how can we fight power without power? So that's when we really started honing in on, we knew politics was the order of the day and how things get done. And so that's when we really started focusing on political education outreach programs so that we can train and develop political minds and political leaders. And so Be the Power kind of started like that. And then we moved to the media space where we use that as a means or an instrument of education so that we can make sure that there's a constant refinement of the information, a constant refinement and refining of the message, and we continue to present the strongest case we can for our justice claim. And we currently, as Be the Power and United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen, working in conjunction, we work with people from all around the country, help with coaching, counseling, mentoring, We help develop leaders and teach political strategy. We put out the Be the Power Civics Guide a while ago, and we have been conducting offline one-on-one civics lessons for individuals, developing leaders, because government is the game and politics is how it's played. And your ability to be successful at that game is really dependent upon the knowledge of how that game works and the rules around that. So we have a lot of things going on online and offline, and we just intend on maintaining the constant presence and to be a constant force in this fight for reparations and justice for our ancestors.
Thank you for that, brother. And you and the brothers over at Be the Power are so appreciated. I appreciate you being in the space. I know Friday and our team here, we watch you and we learn from you every time. So keep doing what you're doing, brother. We're gonna come back around because I want to talk a little more about freedmen as a political status as well. But kicking it to Chris, we got to come to locally. Chris up there in Sacramento, who we all know puts in more work. I don't even think the brother sleeps.
I don't think he sleeps.
I don't think the brother sleeps. Yeah, but Chris, I want to dive right in now to kind of the reparations conversation because you've been here. I think our audience knows you. I want to talk about AB 3121, the importance of AB 3121, and then while we're here on this roundtable, how can others view, in the reparations space around the country, how can others view AB 3121 and the work that's being done? And I want you to give folks some visibility into that work because not everybody sees the day-to-day, grind that we're all engaged in.
And talk about ETM too, because they have a media
shout
arm.
out ETM, CO, Kim, Umoya. Shout out y'all for all the work you do as well.
Yep.
Yeah, big love to the ETM family. That's Emenda Mass Media Group. They're on YouTube, so definitely check them out. Like, share, subscribe. They're, I think, the only dedicated YouTube live stream for the California Reparations Task Force hearings, which, as you were just describing it as AB 3121, right? We sometimes call it the AB 3121 Task Force, but that is, to your question, first in the nation, first in American history, state level reparations task force. Never been anything like it. And before I even go further into that, I did want to just say how proud and really just take a second to just acknowledge the fact that this is beautiful. Like, look how many
it is
amazing, talented.
That's right, brother.
All parts of the country, all parts of the ages, the genders, the education levels, the different walks of life. Look at the new generation for reparations. You're looking at them.
That's right.
You're looking and you're talking to them. And I almost got emotional just hearing some of the intros that you were giving for some of these folks. I work with pretty much everybody here. I think everybody here in one way or another for years now. So I just want to take a moment just to acknowledge that, and also just acknowledge everybody in the chat. I see people in the chat right now. I see a lot of OGs in the chat, and I see a lot of new.
It's a family reunion today. Yeah.
And big love to the chat. This is ultimately, I think, part of how we win reparations and then keep the reparations that we win, which we will do. To your questions really quickly, as I was mentioning, this is a first in the nation effort. It's never ever been happening before. And you were talking about some of the day-to-day grind. I have to give love and give respect to everyday Black folks here in the state of California and across the country who were on California reparations before there was a law or a bill called AB 3121.
That's right.
As y'all know, started somewhere back in 2018 around this, late 2018, early 2019. Before there was a bill, before there was legislation, before there was language, people were on this. So I want to give those folks a shout out. And for the folks who came closer to where we are now, you were talking about some of the work that's continuing to go on for the groups that I work with. As you know, the Coalition for Just and Equitable California here at the state level, and then ARCC at the Northern California level. We've been on this since the beginning, right? We helped create the law. We helped get the law, passed and signed. Then we helped people get on the actual task force. And now we're doing two big things, right? We are working to make sure that the task force work is open and responsive to community voices so that there's community engagement. And then also that the task force gets to the strongest reparations proposals that it can that actually get done in the real world. I'll have to break here, soon anyway, because we're going to go into our, as you were asking about some of the visibility, we're going right into our organizing meetings, which happen every week. There are people organizing every single week. I mean, really every day, but every single week around this. So, I have to go run some organizing meetings in about an hour, but that's some of the work that continues. And just to your last question, or I mean, you asked it second, but I'll answer it last. For those who are looking at this around the country, there are, and I want to make this clear, I am 100,000% supporter of federal reparations. I think federal reparations is the ultimate answer. I also think that we have a huge opportunity with these non-federal reparations efforts, if you can call them that, to build support for reparations at the federal level and do the kind of reparations education that we're going to need to ultimately win. We have two big problems in my mind right now. We still have two big problems, and two, not enough public officials / politicians support for reparations. Those two problems have to get.
I'm so glad you said that, Chris. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, and let's go from like California to Marlon in Chicago, because Evanston, within our community, there's always the argument on how local reparations hinders the federal effort. There's, pros and cons to Evanston. And so, Marlon, if you could just jump in here and talk a little bit about the Evanston piece of the reparations puzzle and, how that piece is being received in Chicago. Do we have Marlon?
We did.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we got you. We got you now. We got you now.
All right, what up? What's
going on, brother?
What up, Freedman? What up, y'all?
What's happening?
Good to see you guys, man. Good to see everybody. Before I even start, y'all should do this like once a month or once a quarter. Just have a big Zoom meeting, have a few panelists, and let everybody else in the Zoom ask questions after the panel or something. Just to keep it going, Just to keep us talking. You know what I'm saying?
I love that, brother. I love it.
Yeah, we all been putting in this work, so ain't no reason we should not be talking it periodically. You know what I'm saying? So, and shout out to y'all, man. Shout out to you, Chris. I'll be seeing you out there, bro. I'm trying to keep up, man. Shout out to the whole California, man. Y'all something else, man. Y'all something else. But yeah, so the Illinois, the Evanston piece, when it first happened, we actually put the representative that started that in touch with Dr. Darity per their request. And because they insisted that Darity is part of what inspired them to do the bill. And then shortly they communicated for a moment. And then shortly after that, I think, and Cobra kind of got hold of that person, and it turned into what it turned to. We tried to get them to change the naming of the bill into maybe an equity bill or a housing program, because that's basically what it is. To no avail. But they, like I said, I think Cobra got a hold of them and they kept down the road they were going. But now, after it passed, they started having all kinds of issues, all kinds of problems. We talked not only to the representative that started that bill, that wrote that bill, but several representatives in Evanston. And it kind of fell on deaf ears. But now that the bill is passed, and they're having all kind of issues as it relates to who should receive the housing program. Is it really a housing program? Some people are upset because they're saying we don't want. Evanston is largely Jamaican, largely Caribbean, and they're saying we don't want Caribbeans to get a piece of something that our ancestors went through, and it's just a big cluster bomb now. And I'm sitting back like. Tried to tell you, but it's a mess right now. So I don't what's gonna happen with it. I don't know. But we raised Cain when it was created. We raised Cain when it passed, and like I said, now hopefully they see the wisdom of what we were talking about. But how they fix it at this point, I'm not sure. But I know now there's the Legislative Black Caucus in the state of Illinois got the governor to sign a bill that has a task force that will study and pay reparations to descendants of enslaved African Americans. So at least we got them talk.
So they
talking the right language a
yeah,
little
they
bit,
learned
yeah.
a little bit, but you
Yes.
from a
So
from a municipal standpoint, I mean, I'm a numbers person, right? I do accounting,
yeah.
and so when I look at all of this stuff, and you'll hear Dr. Darity talk about like the budgets, like the municipal budget versus the state budget versus the federal government budget.
Yep.
That's 3 different budgets, right? So, and depending on where you are in the country, it can Halifax County. I'm gonna shout out my North Carolina people. Halifax County does not have Los Angeles County money, right? So when you look at the blueprint from like the what I call a California perspective, you got a mayor in a major city that's saying, yes, I want federal government. You've got your state governor saying, yeah, we're doing this task force, but yes, we want reparations at the federal level. And that kind of has to be almost like the blueprint, but everyone's jumping on because it's like a hot topic, but if you mess it up, it's not gonna make you look good. It's not gonna be a good look.
Yeah, to kind of echo what you're talking about in terms of budgets and to borrow some of Darity's logic, the state of Illinois' budget for fiscal year 2022 is, I think, $44 billion. And there are approximately 1.8 million Black people in the state of Illinois. If you parse that out, that's about $20-something thousand a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
That ain't
even paying all the bills
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff that's related to the budget. So it's woefully inadequate.
Yeah.
And my fear is they'll pass something called reparations, and they'll give out, school lunch and say that's reparations.
Well, that's almost what Biden did with his educational task force, but I digress.
We ain't got time. But no,
So,
I was gonna say thank you for that, brother, because I think there's lessons, like we can learn lessons on what to do and what not to do, right? And I think Evanston has been a really stark lesson on what we should try to avoid under the label of reparations, right? And it sounds like you're still fighting that fight for that narrative, right? And for what is actually reparations and getting people to understand that, like we've heard others say, it's at the federal level, but local can be influential. So thank you for that.
And I want to, before we switch gears, Tansy Flakes, we were waiting for her when we were initially doing our intros, and I want to make sure we bring her in the proper way, the Politics in Black way.
Yep.
So Miss Tansy Flakes is an advisory board member of the Capital Accountability Project located in the DMV. CAP is a political accountability task force that monitors legislation with a particular interest in policies that affect our communities through local. What are you doing? Chad is in the document, y'all, deleting stuff, moving stuff around.
I'm sorry about that, but I think we know we got it. We got it right.
Oh my goodness! But Tansy, I wanted to welcome you to the show. We know that CAP is definitely doing a lot and is the feet on the grounds there, literally in the federal government's backyard. And it's through local community organization that you all are committed to fighting for policies that improve the quality of life of freedmen in the United States of America, while simultaneously supporting a nationwide push for reparations and a Black agenda for all Black citizens in the United States. And so welcome to Politics in Black.
Thank you for being here, Tansy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And so while we got you here, Tansy, I want to talk to you because you were actually out there on the steps in front of the Supreme Court for the Civil Rights Act of 1866 when that was under assault in that Byron Allen case. So you are boots on the ground and others that were out there with you in front of that Supreme Court. Can you talk to us just a little bit about how that came about, how it was organized, and then what that day was like for you, just quickly, because I think it's important that the family hears, we take a little flashback and we hear about that and the work that you're putting in on the ground there in Connecticut.
Well, actually, I'm in DMV, not Connecticut.
I'm sorry. DC.
Yeah, so I'm here in DMV, and when it comes to the Supreme Court protest that we had, or the rally that we had, we were all listening into Breaking Brown and really rallied around that message. And so it was a group of us, and we were like, hey, you know what? We need to, people are going to be coming out here. We need to do something. And so one phone call turned into a conference call, and everybody got together and who can, with our resources, what are you good at? What are you good at? Asan Powell, another advisor that's
Shout
Shout
out
out
to
to
son.
Son.
Shout out to
yes,
son.
shout out to Asan.
And Marshall. We
yeah.
know
Yeah,
your
and
folks.
Marshall.
Digger, we see you, Digger.
You know, I want to shout them out. I want to shout out to that old crew because we put in a lot of work,
Yes, indeed.
and we pulled some strings together with the permits, and it really taught us a lot, and we're appreciative of that time to get all of those people together. It was at least about 50 people we had, you know, just helping us get all of that stuff together and being out there at about, I think it was like 5:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
It was very, very early, and it was
I
freezing.
was about to say, y'all look cold out there too. Y'all look cold.
Yeah. It was
but you showed up.
freezing out
I have to
Yeah.
give you guys credit though, because there are criticisms, particularly from the reparations community, in terms of, well, what are we marching for? Marching is so 1950s, 1960s. It doesn't get anything done. But what I loved about you guys coming together is it was very specific.
Yep.
Right? It was specific with a specific demand and ask. I mean, obviously that was a what do you call that? A SCOTUS case, a Supreme Court case. And so, you know, it's not, the Supreme Court is a branch of government that is different from the Senate and Congress, which is different from the president, right? And so I think it was important for you all to show up, particularly with the Supreme Court action, because there's almost nothing else as an American citizen you can do. And so if you're going to challenge at like that, to me, I'm with the protesting, I'm with the challenging, particularly when it's to something specific, because they don't see that from us. And they definitely don't see it at the Supreme Court level. And so I got to give y'all a salute, shout out, and all that good stuff. Because, it was cold that day.
That's boots on the
It was
ground.
very cold.
Yeah.
And I think as far as for the criticism goes, and I'll be short, I understand why people criticize, because if you keep seeing people do the same thing over and over, then and getting no results or very little results, you feel some kind of way, as you should. But the thing is, you need all of those elements. You need people boots on the ground. You need people in the offices. You need people making phone calls, and so on and so on. So it's not a one thing that's going to win. It's everything. It's a whole system, and a protest system consists of people at the top, in the middle, and at the bottom doing everything to complete the mission. And as long as that's what's going on, it's going to be a success. Yes. You know, it may not necessarily look like what you think it should look like at the end. It may exceed. It may not even come, may not reach it because, you're just starting, or you have to make some improvements. But it takes all of those elements. It's not a one-off thing.
That's right. And we've talked about that here before. And I just love it, Tansy, and hearing that story again, because that is indicative of bottom up, right? That is movement work, what you guys did on the steps of the Supreme Court, and you continue to do there in the DMV.
And you opened this show talking about the show we did with like SNCC, and I think that the time that they said that they had to do the
90 days.
They had 90 days.
March
so
on Washington. 90 days,
we have to really pat ourselves on the back, and when we as everyday people hop in there, like, we've got to recognize our strength and our power. And so Antonia Edwards, let's get you in here, because this whole in California, the whole eligibility piece becomes a component. And I see that in your bio, you are very specific with your strong commitment from the Black American descendants of U.S. chattel slavery and freedmen communities. That's very specific. So I want you to jump in here and talk just a little bit about whether it's federal reparations or local reparations. What are some of the considerations that you want to start seeing from these task force, from the people that ultimately have to make decisions? Because I think for the first time, we are asking to be recognized as Black people in a way that we haven't before. We've done I'm Black and I'm proud, but we haven't done the tie to the lineage that ties us to being descendants of U.S. chattel slavery. Yeah. So talk a little bit to us about that.
First of all, I'd like to pay homage to everybody. I just want to say that I am so impressed that this is the longest active group of people that I've ever worked with consistency. This started off as being ADOS. I think we all were a part of that. Chris has always been a lifeline and a mentor to me, long distance. I've always followed Marlon. I get inspiration from his boots on the ground because I'm stilettos on the ground. And then, really, literally. And then with Angela, it's always been a consistent fight, and she inspires me as well too. Tansy, she and I have worked together on some different projects, and I've always respected her and had the rapport with her. And be the power. Let me just say to you that there's not one group of Black gentlemen that have that much knowledge that can capture so many people's attention. And let me just, and it's really refreshing. And I'm 55, and I know they're much younger, and I really convince people to watch them. It's not about the age, it's about the mindset. Mm-hmm. And they really inspire me and give me a lot of knowledge every day. So I just want to make sure people understand that we've been working together for 2 to 3 years consistently. And even though we do our own projects, we always bounce together and bounce off of each other. And you really don't see that in our community. So I want to pay homage to that. First of all, let me just explain that we all started off with ADOS. There was a riff. I never really liked ADOS because ADOS is American descendants of slavery. Anybody can be American descendant of slavery, Indians, indigenous people, whatever. So it wasn't very specific to me. So when the rift happened and the divide happened, I changed our name to Black American descendants of chattel slavery. And I felt like it needed to be specific because we didn't want other people to come in and be able to receive the reparations for slavery, for the disparities and the adversities that our people suffered.
Yep.
Since then, by having the knowledge that I hear with the BDP, I've added Freeman. I now really understand it. I get it. Yes. And there's nothing that can be done with regards to reparation until we make them reactivate the Freeman's Act of 1865.
Yes.
So everything center around is it. So for my mindset, we're all Black American descendants of chattel slavery, but legally on paper, we have to hone in on the Freedmen's Bureau, the Freedmen's Act, because that on paper was a law that was passed that protects us. And we need to be a protected class. Mm-hmm. So in the state of Connecticut, I'm not from here, I'm from Boston. I lived here, I've been here for the last 3 or 4 years. One of my co-founders, his name is Jonathan Bryant. He goes by Bookman Duddy. He shared with us that his family has a lineage of being slaves here. In New London was a slave port. Mm-hmm. So he has all the documentation, he has everything. And so we pay homage to him. And so the ADOS and the Solidarity group was really in paying homage to him and his family because we live here. Mm-hmm. So they convinced me to start at the local level, since the ADOS broke up. And I'm like, nah, I don't really want to do that because I sit on 10 boards for kids with disabilities. And I see how hard it is to get people involved. But then I really thought about it after watching Chris and you guys do the AB 1321, and I seen that you have to start locally.
That's right.
So for the last year and a half, Antonia, Jonathan Bryan Bookman,
say their names,
and James have been on the ground. And I think a lot of people don't know because we don't tell them we're only a 3-team party.
Hey now.
The 3 of us get the job done, and we get it done very well. So we didn't want to duplicate exactly what Chris had done because we knew that we couldn't and the California team didn't. So what we tried to do is we tried to write our own bill. We did. We submitted it. We had Dr. Darity testify on our behalf. We submitted to the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus, which we have here, and they ignored us.
Wow.
So being here, who I am, I had something in my back pocket. So there's a senator here who wanted to write the bill for racism as a public health crisis. And so he came to me, he's like, I see this every day. I'm a doctor where Black people are being, disparaged, being discriminated. He said, how can I do this? I said, you need to put Black American descendants of chattel slavery in your bill and have the research, I said, done with regards to how historically we've been despaired and how historically we've been systematic racism in all Black people, no matter where you come from, what flag you represent and everything, you're always going to be discriminated against because you're Black first. Yeah. And so he put it in the bill. So the bill SB 1 is a bill here in Connecticut that was signed on, I think it was in June. I did a lot of collaboration with Chris kind of sort of to get his input, and we have it passed. It's not exactly reparations, but it gets the conversation started that in order for you to do a study on racism, which really starts with Black people.
Right, you need the data.
You need the data.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, you need to research and study the historical content of it, and I have that done. So there's a commission that's already here. What I don't like about it is that there are several major groups that head it, and that's what they did. And so they're mostly medical related groups. And so my question is, were the Black organizations who have the longevity in business to sit on the commission? So We're waiting to have confirmation that we sit on the commission as a grassroots organization, but I have been advocating for all the Black organizations like the NAACP, the Greater African American Alliance. You need a seat on that commission because you can't write policies, you know what I'm saying, to go forward without talking to people in the community.
That's right.
So that's the only glitch that I have. But I'm very specific about paying homage to my people. My mom was a child sharecropper. My grandmother was a sharecropper. My great-grandmother was a slave. And even though I'm from Boston, every summer I spent my summers on the plantations that they sharecropped on. So I've seen it for myself. So I've seen the tail end of Jim Crow. And I think overall, all people need to be paid some kind of restitution or restorative justice. However, when it comes to reparation, that is strictly for people who were enslaved in America. And that happens to be Black men who then turned into freedmen.
Thank you for that.
So that's
Antonia.
what I fight for on a daily basis.
Thank you for that, Antonia. Because I think
Great
we're all squarely aligned on that same there.
And she's talking about a technique that we've talked about often, right? Sometimes you can't get the bill done from scratch, but you can find a legislator.
So let's talk about
that will work with you.
Let's Chris, I want to come back to you, Chris, because that's exactly what happened with AB 105. And since we're talking about eligibility and data disaggregation, let's talk about AB 105 really quick. Tell us how
Senator
that came
Bradford's,
about.
That was
Holden.
Yeah, Holder's bill.
And tell us how that came about,
Similar
the work
number.
that was put in, and then what we're trying to accomplish with AB 105 and the next steps.
Yeah, sorry. I was trying to get my camera straight, so I hope I didn't get too funny looking. But so AB 105 was a bill. Assembly Bill 105 was a bill here in California this year to do a lot of things. But why we loved it was because we actually got added to it language, and this goes to the point that you were just making about finding what we call a vehicle, a legislative vehicle for the language that we wanted to see. And that language would, for the first time in California history, would have for the first time made the state of California agencies, boards, and commissions actually get very specific and get very lineage based in the way that it collects data in the state of California on Black folks. So it would be no longer okay just to have the big Black or African American category, right? And then, go and talk about other people. This bill would say California in that Black or African American category, you have to break it down by lineage. You have to specifically create a space for Black folks who descend from U.S. slavery for the first time ever and start collecting that data. We got that specific language based on, and I think Dr. Darity's in the chat here, Section 6 of that bill actually has language that is very close, if not identical to the reparations criteria that he uses for reparations eligibility. That specific language is in AB 105 as a way to say this is how you define people who descend from U.S. slavery. Yeah. And so we worked to get that language in another bill or a vehicle. And just to be totally fully disclosure, for the audience here, everybody I think knows, but if you don't know, Governor Gavin Newsom vetoed AB 105, so it's thumbs down for that, right? Vetoed AB 105 about a week or so ago.
After we put him back in office, I'm talking a little smack.
That's a whole other show. That's a whole other show.
I'm just saying.
we
separate show, but also we are not going anywhere. We're not going away, right? One of the things about legislative making, right, and it should be legislation making and political work, is you have to keep going, right? Sometimes you get knocked down, but you have to get back up, and you have to fight again, and you get stronger. So we're coming back even stronger next time. I'll say that, and then I do have to go because I have to go to the organizing meeting.
Yes, brother Chris.
Thank you,
brother Chris. We're gonna see you
people.
soon. We're gonna see you soon. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. And I want to pivot.
Yeah.
I want to go to logic.
Yep.
Thank you, Chris. I want to pivot to logic because I did a recent genealogy search. I'm pretty solid on my father's side. I went down to North Carolina to go dig in the OG books from the 1800s. They got some books that went back to the 1500s down in North Carolina. And logic, you started with the freedmen. And I will say when I did the research, one of the things that struck me, and I guess I kind of knew, but seeing it happen the way it did, it just struck me because literally the family went from being categorized as Negroes, colored to mulatto. And in the case of my mom's side of the family, the last name started change into like the names of towns, right? Which means that I can get back to those plantation owners that were so influential in their day that towns are named after them. And that just struck me, like the Negro, the colored, the mulatto, and then you hit that wall that a lot of Black folks hit. You can't get past the 1800. You can't get into the 1700s because then the records start getting sketchy. And so you really pushed the language of the freedmen. And as I was kind of going through stuff, it's like, in terms of qualifying, do we want to qualify Negroes before 1865? Do we want to qualify coloreds before 1865? Freedmen definitely came up because there was one ancestor who had to go to a freedmen's hospital, right? So that's tied in to the history. But talk to us a little bit about those different I don't know, that experience of just going from that Negro to colored to mulatto and the freedmen. Do we have logic?
Yeah. Yes, you have me. I am here.
All right.
Yeah. So, great question, and I'm glad it was that. So, one thing that we gotta be clear about is when we talk about the different ethnic designations, and then when we talk about the freedmen designation. Well, we have to first, as we started examining the history, we saw that the lineage was our families, right? People know how you trace your lineage is through bloodlines and family names, right? So we understood that, okay, now we understand lineage, right? And so once we started doing that lineage specific research, we saw the pattern and then we saw the status of these people. Our people, specific American families, went through different status changes. Chattel slavery was a status, right? A status stripping you, and you everywhere you know, that's everywhere you went, that status followed you, right? And even when we self-liberated and escaped, you had another status called fugitive placed upon you. That was a status. That's a status. If you get caught in fugitive status, certain consequences and certain things happen to one with the status of fugitive. And so even up into the Civil War, when the Northern generals and military troops were taking in refugees, slave refugees, or people who self-liberated and ran away, they had another status put on it because now they're under protection of the Union forces, but it's still a gray area legally. So now they're called contraband. That was another status put on our people. So Abraham Lincoln, by executive order in 1862, issued that executive order, the Emancipation Proclamation, right? That changed the federal status of all of our families who were subjugated to the freedmen, to be freedmen, who are subjugated under private bondage. And now we're being declared, their status is being changed, right? Not their names or anything like that. It was their status that was being changed. So now he's made the president is making it federally illegal anywhere to hold slaves, and that anyone who was connected to private bondage is now a freedman by a declaration of federal authority. And so we tracked that status, and then it was doubled down on with the abolition of slavery in the 13th Amendment. And then you have the 1866 Civil Rights Act. You got the Freedmen Acts of 1865 and 1866. And we see a slew of federal programs that came and to help repair and make a transition for those families, those specific families, category of American families who had to suffer private bondage, who are now freedmen in America, about approximately 4 million of us who are now have the freedman status. Yeah. You had to have that status to benefit from the freedman programs, right? They set up an agency specific for those people. And we are really the largest and like the first American protected status of families, right? The 14th Amendment was solely like generated and undergirded by our family's work. That's the biggest protection act ever passed in the American Constitution history. And so the history is so rich with what we need to know to help us do what we need to do today. Another big takeaway from the freedman status is that we are a protected class. We have civil rights justice work all throughout our history, and that our lineage is the families who had to suffer private bondage and then had to be forcefully, unconstitutionally put into a system of state oppression and public subjugation with the Black codes, literacy laws. There's a whole rich history of all of that that took place. And there's a lot of examples of freedmen's successes and statesmen. We had senators and things like that. But I know the time is running out. I could spend a whole lot of time explaining that, but just before I pass it, I just wanted to comment to what was said earlier by Chris, and it was such an important thing. He talked about what we need to focus on building more public support, people support, and politician support. I think that the only way we can do that in a federalist government is our organizations, we really focus on the restoration work where the damage happened, particularly in the South, right? We know that we were forced migration through states and we had damage everywhere. So we want to go back to the origin of that story, which is really our state origins are, Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, South Carolina, in the South where those stories started, where we built America. We built America from the South, right? And so 66% of our families still live in the South, and only about 44% live outside the South. And we're seeing a natural, gradual return home to our states of origin. And what we have kind of wanted to introduce to the public in a major way when we did the interview with Charles Blow, but we put it even into our 12-point platform and program, the return home strategy, which gives us the ability to live in an America that we've never been able to live in before. And I'm talking about an America where we have numerical majorities in state power, where we are the majority that installs power in our general assemblies, to our governors, to our Supreme Court, all the way up to the U.S. Senate, U.S. Congress, so on and so forth. We haven't had a Black majority install a U.S. senator since Hiram Revels. And so we want to get back to that. We know that in America is a federalist society, and it's most of the work, even if it gets done on the federal level, still has to be filtered back through to the states. And so there is a lot of things we can do at the state level. A lot of people want to call everything reparations because that's what we're really focused on. But there's work that not only can be done, but it must be done on the local and state levels as well. So that's why we have a national call for deconfederatization. There's a lot of state acts of atonement that not only should be done, but they must be done. And that's what we can call them. Here's 3 things you can call state things on the local and state level: state acts of atonement, economic security initiatives, and justice initiatives and policies. So when we're fighting for so now we're still getting at the same and similar repairs, but we don't have to call it reparations. We can call it economic security initiatives. We can call it state acts of atonement. And then we can also organize our own commissions to do our own surveys, investigations, research, and have those things submitted to state agencies and federal agencies for impact for national reparations, right? Last thing before I say, United Sons and Daughters, we are freedmen are organizing a reawakening and a resurrecting of the U.S. Freedmen's Inquiry Commission, right? It's an independent commission led by the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen, with our freedmen correspondents around the country to do surveys and interviews and hold hearings around the country, but in the states that we live, so that we can get witnesses on the impact of Black codes, slavery, Jim Crow, everything leading up to present day, to have the most accurate information to continue the civil rights justice work.
Awesome. And we're crunching down social media quickly for you, Brother Logic.
What'd you say?
I said we're winding down. We have 5 minutes to try and close out this segment, and so I wanted to make sure that people had your social media information.
Okay, you can reach me at Dr. Logic Supreme on Twitter. You can reach the organizations at btp.org and usadof.org. Those are our websites where you can look at the 12-point program and platform and look at some of our initiatives and who all works the organization and everything like that.
And thank you, brothers, and the brothers over there at BTP for resurfacing this freedmen history. It's hidden in plain sight, and you brought it to the forefront, and it makes perfect sense. It's the difference between lineage and political status, and there's federal precedent there, which is, we look for the precedents to build on, right? So thank you for doing that, brothers. Before we get out of here and before we start doing social media, I did want to pose one question to everybody here on just quickly.
One sentence, if you can.
A few sentences, but where do you see the future of the reparations movement from today moving forward in your locality and federally?
Let's start with Angela.
Let's start with Angela. Angela, start us off.
I see us successfully accomplishing reparations here in the state of California, given the way we're leaning in and the way we're showing up and the way we're at that table. And I look at that as being the precedent for what we can expect on the federal level.
Yeah.
And I look at this group of co-founders of the former ADOS movement as the people that will be at that table ultimately. That's my vision, that we're going to get this done in the not so distant future as long as we continue in the social media and the new Black media to lean in.
And Angela, give us end on your social media for us, just so everybody knows how they can get in touch with you.
My website is thereperspect.com, and then my channel on YouTube is the Reparationist Perspective. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, sister.
It's been real.
And you keep that fire burning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tansy, I'm gonna come to you, Tansy. Future of the reparations movement from your perspective in the DC DMV area.
I think from my perspective, because the DC area is a different animal. So we can't necessarily go about it the same way other people may go about it. So I think our best move is to start grassroots, educating people, getting them more civically involved, attacking the problem that Chris was talking about, not enough support from the people, not enough support from politicians. Well, as we all know, politicians do not move on applause. They move on pressure.
Yep.
And so that's how you get it. And that's what we're doing here at CAP. We're starting it from the ground up, getting people civically engaged, pointing out legislation to them that, hey, did you know this was happening right in your backyard? Things that they can do to either prevent or to promote the things that is good for them. They don't understand that they need reparations. They don't understand that they're owed reparations, not fully. And so I think that's one of the things that we have to do here. Help them understand and meet them where they are so that the resistance will be nullified. That's
beautiful, Tansy. Give us social media. How can people get involved with CAP?
Yeah, so you can find us on CAP Task Force. That is CAPTASKFORC.org. And we are Capital Accountability on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
All right, you heard it. You trying to be boots on the ground in DC? Hit them up.
DMV, that's 3 states right there, just so we're clear.
DMV, sorry. I'm talking from the West Coast. Marlon, we're coming to you, man. Illinois, give us your perspective. You one of the OGs in this movement. You brought people together. You've been organizing Chicago for years now. What do you see happening from your perspective, brother? Future reparations movement. You're on mute, Marlon. Unmute.
Can you hear me?
We got you.
All right. I think everything has a window. I think the energy we created from the hashtag movement we were all with, I think it has a window. And I think all windows close. Not to say they won't reopen, but I think all windows close. And the energy we created, I think the window is still open, but I don't think it's going to be open forever. So now myself, Arthur Ward, Cynthia McDonald, shout out to them, and the Freedmen Descendants of Chicago.
Shout out.
Yeah, and the Freedmen Descendants of Chicago, we're linking up with Brother Logic, Naeem, United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. In fact, that's where we got the name from. When we decided to part ways with the hashtag movement, I hit Logic up and was like, yo, bro, we thinking about Freedmen Descendants of Chicago. He was like, man, that sounds great. So we did that. And what we're looking to do now is link up with those guys and the other freedmen organizations across the country and use that status, use that identity to recreate the energy we had and try to push through that window before it closes. So that's what we're on.
How can a family in Chicago get involved with Freedmen Descendants of Chicago?
Email me at freedmenchicago@gmail.com. freedmenchicago@gmail.com. And real quick, before y'all let me, before we close, the bill we got passed in the state of Illinois makes structural violence a health crisis.
Yes.
And that's very, very important. Just look up structural violence. In a nutshell, it's social structures that hinder groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just another way to equity and reparations. And now that we've gotten the state to admit it, where we have a plan that, you know, we're wanting to introduce that would help remedy the structural violence that has been enacted on our community. So look up structural violence.
And we applaud you for that, because Kay Ivey, the governor of Alabama, wants to remove critical race theory. They done outlawed it, and she also wanted to use COVID funding for prisons, and that's structural, right? And so structural violence, making that like a health issue, is something that can also be blueprinted for the rest of us reparationists, you know, across the country. And so I just want to commend you for that, because
Absolutely.
that's like huge.
Kudos, brother.
Yeah, that really is. And so Miss Antonia Edwards.
Close us out.
I want to say something really quick, but I don't want you to forget what Logic and Mr. Collins was talking about. It is extremely important that people focus on freedmen. And the reason why I'm saying this is, like the Native Americans, they have a Bureau of Indian Affairs. We were talking before about we need a Bureau of ADOS Affairs, let's just say. We already have it. It's called the Freedmen's Bureau.
Yep.
We have always been a protected class,
Yes.
and we're owned by the federal government. However, it just slipped through us. We have to go back and reactivate that.
That's right.
And the biggest piece, I worked for the census last year. In 2018, they asked every other Black race to denote their nation of origin. They didn't ask us. They didn't ask us as Black people where we came from. So I was running around with the census like, put ADOS, put ADOS. The bottom line is we need to get together and have them put that on the upcoming census and all the surveys they have out there. So yes, it's going to happen. The reparations are going to happen, but we got to be smart and play them at their own game. We already are protected. Yeah. We already have an act.
Yeah.
We already have a status. That's and right. they never honored it. So we have to go back and reactivate the Freedmen's Bureau Act of 1865. And that's how we're going to get our reparations. Don't spin the wheels with new stuff. It's already there. They have to honor it. That's how we get our reparations. So please just listen to the BDP broadcast. You know, listen to Mr. Marlin. He actually sacrificed his life and walked cross country, you know what I'm saying, to make this happen. And these are the people that are sacrificing and doing this on their own. Nobody's going to do this if they truly don't believe in it.
That's right.
Because, I mean, every day I'm out there with stilettos on, beating the pavement, trying to enlighten people and empower them. I don't get paid for that. That's what I do because it's in my heart. And I just think that our people need to pay attention to the people who are out here every day.
Right.
It's no hustle. Yep. I spend more money doing this than I pay on my page. So this is what I do from my heart.
Antonia, tell the people how they can get involved with Solidarity.
Solidarity is on Facebook. It was a capital D, SOLI, capital DARITY. And that's the easiest way to get in touch with me. Okay. My email address is my name, Antonia, ANTONIA.Edwards@Yahoo. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Well, I just want to say big salute to everybody here for all the work you've been doing for the past years. It does not go unnoticed. It does not go unseen. It does not go unappreciated. We learn from each and every one of you, and it only makes us stronger as a collective. So thank you, each and every one of you, for everything that you're doing.
Do this once a quarter. Once a quarter.
We heard you, Marlon.
You coming back, we're going to do it.
Once a quarter.
Much love, fam.
Right,
much love.
You.
Thank you for being here.
Woo, what a show. What a show.
That's boots on the ground.
That's
bottom up.
On the ground.
That's people making the movement, fam. Pay attention. Pay attention. This is what we're talking about. This is how we get the needle to move. People, everyday people, on the ground, passionate, getting things done. Calls to action.
And this is for fearless people. This work is not for the meek.
Ain't no cowards here.
It's no cowards here. You have to be able to speak your truth, and when everybody in the room does not look like you.
That's right.
And that is not an easy walk to do. But
I think we got to take a break.
We do have to take a break.
Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. If you like what we're doing here, hit the Cash App, hit the Venmo, NAASDLA. Help us keep this going. Fam, we're going to be right back after this break.
Yes, we here, beautiful Sacramento, California capital. We are here at the Capitol to
for hearings on our bill called the Upward Mobility Act of 2021. Now, what's important for us about this bill is that also included in the bill is language that Coalition for a Just and Equitable California, CJEC, actually authored that would, for the first time ever, make California break down the data it collects for its black population by lineage. We need to talk about specifically blacks from the USA, right? Blacks who descend from U.S. slavery. Make sure we're getting good, clear data on the specific needs of our community, so that way we can design good, effective strategies to get good and effective outcomes, right? So, Gavin Newsom, if you're watching, because I know you are, okay, sign AB 105 into law today, okay, today. All right, get the...
All right, we're back, fam, from that quick break. Once again, like the video, and I was told by the producer that I should tell you to like the video because it helps the algorithm spread the message. So you're not only just liking for us, you're liking because you want to spread this message. So like the video, share the video, subscribe, hit the Cash App, hit the Venmo. We're going to keep on rolling. So what we got next Friday? I'm fired up now. That got me ready.
We're back to California. Our continuing segment with Meet the Task Force, AB 3121, Meet the Task Force. We're continuing on with Dr. Jovan Scott Lewis.
Yeah.
I'm going to let Chad introduce him, but
it's my pleasure.
It's very important that we continue to, for the folks here in California, and even for the folks not in California, for you all to understand what a truly well-run, committed commission looks like. And it's important for us to bring these commissioners in front of you, for you to ask questions, for you to understand their backgrounds, and for you to really be hands-on through a historic task force.
That's right.
Passing the baton.
So Dr. Jovan Scott Lewis is an associate professor of geography at the University of California, Berkeley. He co-leads the Economic Disparities Research Cluster in Berkeley's Othering and Belonging Institute, and he received his PhD in anthropology from the London School of Economics. Jovan's research is concerned with the articulations of racialized poverty, which he examines through questions of racial capitalism, underdevelopment, and radical terms of repair. He has conducted research in Jamaica on these topics, which culminated in his monograph, Scammers Yard, The Crime of Black Repair in Jamaica. He is currently at work on his second monograph based on research conducted in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which traces the consequences of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. And as you heard, he is also presently sitting as a member of the AB 3121 California Reparations Task Force. So please welcome to the podcast, Dr. Jovan Scott Lewis. Dr. Lewis.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here, brother. We appreciate you. We've had some conversations behind the scenes, but we wanted to bring you here so our audience can get to know you, can hear your perspectives, because you are sitting on this historic task force now and doing historic work.
That's right. Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to start with you because obviously we all hear the accent. So could you tell us your ethnicity, where you are from, and then because I know already, but then talk to us a little bit about what brought you to the reparations space, and particularly to this task force here at the state of California.
Sure. So yeah, I am from Jamaica, Montego Bay, Jamaica. Let me just get the Zoom thing right. Okay. So I am from Montego Bay, Jamaica. So the accent, I think, although I've lost it quite a bit over the years, still, keeps that quite apparent. Yeah. I have been thinking about reparations, for a while. Since my teenage years, I've been committed to what we can consider the kind of politics of Black liberation. But for me, as far as the kind of study of the question of reparations, it comes out of my deep commitment to understanding, as you said, as part of my research areas of interest and expertise, right? The question of underdevelopment. In other words, one of the things that we have to realize is that, Western development, where we're thinking about the United States specifically, or we're thinking about, the development of Western Europe, has all been facilitated through the intentional and structural impoverishment and underdevelopment of Black and African American communities. And so once you get to a point where you fully understand, the means by which Black people are made to be poor, and you understand that their poverty, right, isn't about their failing, in the economy, but rather that their poverty is part of the recipe, right, of say American development, then you are, only naturally brought to the question of, well, how do you respond to that, right? Because what you see is that, that wealth and the absence of wealth in Black communities is a form of injury. And so ultimately you have to think about the question of reparations as the other side of that process. And so what we see is that we can't have any kind of full liberation. We can't have any kind of, true, forward momentum with, regards to, the specific development of United States society, right? Or just the full, and full-throated commitment to the humanity of Black people without reparation. So, so that's, in a very fundamental way how, I came to ask these questions.
Awesome. I do have a question for you. And there's a passage in Zora Neale Hurston's Barracoon book. And she talks about how she had to get away with the myth that she learned growing up that there was a red flag. There's a red flag, and the Black folks, our African ancestors, followed the red flag, and that's how they were captured. And I think it certainly goes much deeper. It's much deeper, and her book documented the last slave ship that came to the United States. But a lot of us, and I read a lot. I'm not a history major. I did accounting. I have an accounting degree. I do numbers, but when you look at the Utrecht Agreement from 1713 and those Assento, I'm not saying it right, Assentio de Negros agreements that were between some of the Portuguese families and some of the wealthier African families that participated in the transatlantic slave trade. One of the things that's not really discussed is Black Americans' colonial reparations claim. We're so busy trying to fight the American part of the claim, and California falls into that, but that whole that back history becomes important. And I'm just wondering, in your international space, is there ever any conversation or consideration for American Blacks in that colonial type claim that would go back to the UK or back to Spain?
Absolutely. We think about this, especially since the New York Times initiative around 1619. We have to remember where we were, right? In 1619, what this place was, talking about North America, right? The Virginia colony, right? The Virginia colony was a colony, right? And so there is, without question, I think, a claim that African Americans can make to the British Crown for reparations. That is part of I think, especially I think in a lot of the recent discussion where we're talking about lineage, right? And it would be great to talk about lineage as well. What I do in my work is I trace the lineage of harm, the lineage of injury, right? And you have to follow that, you have to follow the money, right? As the saying goes. And in the long injury, right? In the long injury, it's a single injury that African Americans have faced in this country, right? Just different phases of it.
Right.
But in that long injury, right? That injury does have British roots, right? And so to answer your question, yes, there is a colonial, right? There is a colonial claim that African Americans, I think, should make in their reparations claims. I understand the need to, especially on the reparations task force, here in California, we are in many ways centering the kind of geography of California and making our way back, right? We're making our way outside of the geography of California. At least we started outside of the geography of California when we are thinking about the history of enslavement in the United States. Nevertheless, I think there is a longer question, right? In other words, the injury has a quite a long tail that we might be looking at the very end of in California. So I think, that is the question, right? That is the question is, how far, are reparations organizations and movements willing to go to make that claim?
Yeah.
But with all legitimacy, the claim is there.
Yeah. And I would just say, separate claim, right? So we're talking about, a colonial claim versus a federalized or established United States claim. So that would be the only distinction I'd make there, but I agree with you. I wanted to talk
what I'm saying is that,
Yeah.
so, if we're going to say, if we're, using the term ADOS, right, of the let's call it an ethnic identification. What I'm saying is that ADOS, right, has a reparations claim that I think legitimately can be brought,
Yeah.
right, to the British government. That's what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha.
Because in 1619, Virginia was a British colony.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
That's what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so you went right where I wanted to go and to talk about lineage, because you brought up lineage, and the task force has been answering the question of eligibility, or at least tackling the question of eligibility, at least in the last meeting. That conversation has begun, right? So I wanted to talk to you because I know that you've probably heard some things online, having a Jamaican American on this task force, right? And there's been some concern from the communities about, what are your viewpoints on eligibility? So I wanted to give you this opportunity, this space, Dr. Lewis, just to give us your view on eligibility for reparations here in America.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And, actually from the very first meeting, I made my position clear. And what I'm saying, right, with my claims, with my comment just a moment ago around, lineage, is that, what the work of the task force is, right? The California Reparations Task Force, AB 3121, right, is to determine what eligibility means, right? I mean, that's in the bill. Now, for my personal belief, right, and it's important to note, and I'm sure if you've had other task force members on the program, that we're all speaking from our individual positions,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes.
We aren't permitted to speak for the task force.
Absolutely.
So what AB 3121 puts forward, right, is a very, while it asks us to determine eligibility, it puts forward, to my mind, a very clear set of parameters for what eligibility looks like in this conversation, right? And so what that looks like to me is a clear, right, African American, meaning Americans descendant of slavery, right, eligibility. I mean, that to me isn't controversial.
Yes.
And I think the idea that somehow it would be for me is, I guess I get it.
Yeah.
Right. But I think, for me, in my work on reparations, it is about how do you make the claim?
Yes.
Right. How do you trace the injury? And so what we're seeing is that there is a particular foundation of injury around Blackness in this country, right, that is predicated upon the subject, right, that is the enslaved African in this country, right? And what we're looking at is the inheritance of that injury-making possibility in the descendants of that subject. And so for me, it isn't really controversial, right? Now, what you have, and this is why I've wanted us to have this conversation on eligibility from the very beginning, right? Because if we're going to start thinking about eligibility, and we're going to think about eligibility as it relates to what we might consider injury, then we have to be very precise. And we need to be precise from the very beginning. Because if you aren't clear about who's eligible, then what you end up having is what you can consider a mixed bag of injury, right? And what you have in that mixed bag are, multiple claims that can be made. And if you get to a point where you have this very unclear sense of the injuries you're working on, and then you then say after the fact, well, we're going to partition this, right? We're going to make some eligible, some ineligible. Then what you actually do is you undermine the entire project of reparations from the beginning, right? And so for me, it's important that we're very clear about, who is eligible. Yeah. And these are questions that I've been trying to ask us to address, and that I'm glad that we finally have begun to address it. I think, the other end of the question is, given that this is a California specific reparations program, how are we defining eligibility based upon, California residency? And so, that's the level of commitment that I have towards thinking precisely about eligibility.
Got it.
And I think, we have to do that. Because yes, you may be ADOS, but what does it mean for ADOS to show up in California on the eve of the reparations bill, right? From some other state? I don't know, right? And and that's one thing that I've been trying to, to get people in the community to kind of give us some greater clarity on, right? Because we need to know what eligibility really means. And it seems as if, folks like you in the community are very committed to thinking precisely about eligibility. And that's a kind of, it's that precision that is going to actually make us do this the right way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. And thank you for that clarity. And I hope that clarifies it for folks out there that may have been questioning your perspectives on it. So real quickly, sure. Dr. Lewis, I want to talk to you about the difference between federal and state level, reparations, quote unquote, right? So if you listen to our last segment and if you've seen any of the shows, or if you listen to Dr. Darity, we're all in agreement that reparations, and I call it capital R reparations, right? The big project that we're all talking about is a federal responsibility. The federal government is culpable. Only the federal government has the financial wherewithal to meet the debt. It must be levied on a federal level to reach all of our community, all those Black people who are descendants out of persons enslaved in the U.S. So how do you view your role and the task force? I know you can't speak for the task force, but just your role here in California in the context of the federal push for reparations.
Well, what we need a working model, right? I mean, and that's what I think is at stake here, which is why I'm so committed to kind of making sure that we, are being very precise in everything that we do. So the opportunity that we have here, right, in the state of California, is to create a model for what reparations at the federal level can look like in terms of actually getting it done. Because what we see and what we have seen, right, are these, effectively, there is, a clear political desire to not advance a reparations, policy at the federal level, right? It's been put forward, right? But we know where the roadblocks are. Yeah. And so what California can do is to provide a model to show, right, that it can be done, right? And so it leads me to some of my own thinking around reparations, which I'll call, so I love that you call it big R reparations, right? Because that's exactly right. And we have to remember, right, that big R reparations is a particular reparation, right? But what we really will need is a multiplicity of reparations, even within the single, say, category of ADOS claim of repair, right, and reparation. In other words, in my personal thinking, you have the federal level, you have the state level, right? You have corporations, you have other entities, right, that have all had a hand, right, in the ongoing injury of African-American disenfranchisement, impoverishment, mass incarceration, etc. So what we need to do is we need to have a viable model for what this thing looks like and how we can get it done. Because then what that means is that all we need to do after that point is to modulate the scale at which we're working, right? So how do you perhaps increase the scale for a federal claim, right? How do you perhaps modify the scale to kind of fit what might be the responsibility for corporations or other entities? We're seeing, in different places, universities, for example, who are recognizing the injury, their role in slavery and in the holding and owning and, exploitation of enslaved, Africans in this country. So, what California does is set the model for sure.
Yes. I love all of that.
We do. We never have enough time.
Never have enough time.
We never do.
Oh, I mean, I'm still here. You don't gotta go. But but I appreciate that. I think, and the work that you're doing is so essential, right? And what you're doing is so critical because it's what the task force really can't do. What we're hoping to do with our community engagement program. But, even that still, we don't necessarily have the ability to speak plainly, right? You know, I really am a firm believer in, you know, speaking the truth and making it plain. And although the academic in me makes things complicated sometimes, for sure, you know, but the heart should be a heart of just plain speaking, right? And so, you know, outlets like yours are doing that work, and so I appreciate it and I appreciate you.
Yeah, and we appreciate you, Dr. Lewis, and the
Yeah,
work
of
that
course.
you've done up to now, and being a part of this task force and bringing that type of perspective. You bring a unique perspective and a unique vision of what this task force can be and what it can mean to the nation and to our community nationally that we greatly appreciate. So thank you, sir, for everything that you're doing. And let's stay connected. You know, we're doing.
Please.
We
You know, I'm
we're
happy to come back again.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'm listening, I'm watching, you know, trying to pick up what I can. You know, because, you know, and I'll end it here, you know, to me, you know, like reparations and repair are related, but still distinct things, right? Mm-hmm. And repair, I think, is what a lot of people perhaps in the, you know, in the network are calling the satisfaction of reparations, right? And so, you know, for us, we don't know what repair or satisfaction looks like or feels like without this kind of public communication, right? Like you don't, so we can put things forward, you know, as a task force, we could put things forward, right? You know, as a government entity, but we won't know if it actually hits. That's right. And that's a satisfaction. And that's what repair looks like. And that's what repair is ultimately about. So without venues like yours, we won't really know for sure. So thank you again for the work, and yeah, please have me back. I'm happy to come back.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Lewis.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis.
Yeah, of course. Take care.
How can just real quick, Dr. Lewis, social media? How can folks hit you up if they, you know, if they didn't hear this, they still want to complain?
I'm on Twitter. You know, I'm like somebody's, you know, technologically disadvantaged uncle on Twitter. But I have a Twitter. It's, you know, it's right there. It's at Javon Lewis on Twitter.
Okay.
You know, my email address is my first name at berkeley.edu. So jovan@berkeley.edu. Yeah, so people are free to reach out, send me a note, or, you know, you could try and reach me on Twitter, but I really am not good at it.
Well, thank you,
I'm gonna try and be better. I have to figure it out.
We're gonna get you in Angela Nirvana classes.
Oh,
get you guys classes.
She'll set you on fire. She'll set you on fire.
Anyway, thank you so much, Dr. Scott Lewis. This has been another Politics in Black, very powerful show. Please like the video, share the video. If you have family meetings, make sure you send your family members, like, go check out the videos that we do. We do them once a month, but what we bring to you is always some sort of quality education to further your advocacy in the reparations movement. And so we thank you so much for tuning in. Everyone that hit the like, gave a couple of dollars so we could come back next month. We appreciate you and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, fam, for everything. Thank you for being here, and thank you for continuing to be in this fight, in this movement. I've said it before, it's all hands on deck. So you saw the grassroots here. Get involved, get engaged, hit these folks up, hit up their organizations. It's time for all of us to stand up and demand this justice claim gets satisfied. Let's get together and let's get it done.
All right.
That's it for me.
Until next month. Bye, everybody.
Peace, fam.
I would like to just mention one thing else quickly, and that is the method that the white man uses, how the white man uses these big guns or Negro leaders against the black revolution. They're not a part of the black revolution. They're used against the black revolution. When Martin Luther King failed to desegregate Albany, Georgia, the civil rights struggle in America reached its low point. King became bankrupt almost as a leader. Plus, even financially, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was in financial trouble, plus it was in trouble, period, with the people when they failed to desegregate Albany, Georgia. Other Negro civil rights leaders of so-called national stature became fallen idols. As they became fallen idols, began to lose their prestige and influence, local Negro leaders began to stir up the masses. In Cambridge, Maryland, Gloria Richardson. In Danville, Virginia, In other parts of the country, local leaders begin to stir up our people at the grassroots level. This was never done by these Negroes whom you recognize of national stature. They controlled you, but they never incited you or excited you. They controlled you, they contained you. They kept you on the plantation.